Do you tire of being overlooked, of giving too much and receiving little in return? The problem we solve today is simple: how to command desire, respect, and obsession without begging for it. In the theater of power, men are ruled not by abundance, but by scarcity. I, Niccolò Machiavelli, have long observed that when you withdraw yourself from the reach of others, they burn with a greater fire to have you. Today, I will reveal why your absence becomes the iron chain that binds their obsession. In the pursuit of power, my friends, remember this: what is common is cast aside, and what is rare becomes priceless. Men are blind to abundance, for when something lies always before their eyes, they grow wary of its presence. It is the scarcity of a thing, the difficulty of obtaining it, that lights the fire of obsession in their hearts. Consider how precious stones command more desire than mere pebbles upon the road, though both are but rocks. It is not their substance alone, but their rarity, that makes men willing to bleed, fight, and even kill for them. The same principle governs the affairs of men and women alike. If you are always seen, always heard, always available, your worth diminishes. They believe they can have you at any hour, and thus they give you no value. But if you withdraw, if you become scarce, the mind begins to hunger. What was once taken for granted now appears precious. Your absence creates a vacuum, and into that void pours curiosity, longing, and pursuit. Men desire most what slips from their grasp, what they fear they may never hold again. I tell you this not as mere philosophy, but as a law of power. Princes have fallen not because their enemies were too strong, but because they made themselves too common. A ruler who is too familiar with his subjects, who gives too freely of his time, his counsel, his presence, soon finds himself treated not as a master, but as an equal. And when men see you as equal, they no longer fear you, nor do they chase you. They neglect you. But if that same ruler cloaks himself in distance, if he appears but seldom, his every entrance commands attention. His scarcity makes men hang on his words, as if they were rare jewels cast before them. The desire bred by scarcity is not limited to rulers. It applies to all human relations. Think of the lover who is always eager, always chasing, always yielding. He becomes a bore, for his presence offers no challenge, no conquest. But the lover who withholds himself, who appears only when he chooses, becomes a torment to the mind of the beloved. She dreams of him, wonders about him, burns with obsession to have what is not freely given. Scarcity transforms indifference into longing, longing into desire, and desire into pursuit. Understand this: the human mind is a poor judge of value when drowned in plenty. Bread means nothing to a man whose table is full, yet to the starving, a single loaf is salvation. If you give yourself too freely, they will gorge and then forget. But if you ration your presence as though it were bread in famine, they will never cease to crave you. They will speak of you when you are absent. They will wonder at your silence. They will invent stories to explain your distance. And in their minds, you will grow greater than you are. Scarcity is the architect of myth. The less they see you, the more they imagine. And imagination always paints in brighter colors than reality. A man who is seldom seen becomes a figure of legend, while the one always present becomes but furniture in the room, noticed only when removed. You must decide whether to be the furniture that no one remembers, or the rare figure whose very shadow excites whispers. Consider how markets manipulate men. Merchants hoard their goods, not because they cannot sell, but because scarcity raises the price. A jewel locked in a vault becomes more valuable than the same jewel displayed in every shop window. In this same way, you must treat yourself. Do not place yourself in every hand, in every ear, in every eye. Lock away your presence, and when at last you show yourself, they will pay dearly in attention, in devotion, in longing simply to behold you. Even in warfare, scarcity breeds desire. A commander who is seldom seen by his men, but who appears at the moment of crisis, inspires more awe than one who is always among them. The soldiers wait, they whisper, they long for his appearance, and when at last he comes, their spirits are inflamed, as if a god had descended. Had he been always present, his words would lose their weight, his image its mystery. and his authority its sacred fire. Therefore, never forget abundance is the path to neglect, scarcity the path to obsession. What men cannot easily have, they chase with fever. What they can have at will, they discard without thought. To master this law is to master desire itself. And when you master desire, you master men. There is a power greater than presence, and that is absence. Men believe strength lies in constant display, in being ever before the eyes of others. But in truth, the opposite is often more potent. To withdraw yourself strategically, to remove your presence from the banquet of daily life, is to make yourself more valuable than all who remain. For what is rare is treasured, and what is always before us becomes invisible. Absence is not weakness. It is a weapon sharpened on the stone of human desire. Reflect upon this truth: the sun is absent at night, yet men long for its return with every shadow that falls. Were the sun never to leave the sky, men would grow weary of its glare and curse its heat. It is the rhythm of absence and return that makes the sun a marvel. So too must you govern your presence. Be not like the common light that burns without pause, but like the comet that appears seldom, causing men to marvel, to fear, to remember. The man who is always present becomes as furniture in a chamber, familiar and forgotten. He speaks, and no one listens, for his words are too frequent. But let him vanish for a time, let his voice fall silent, and suddenly men lean forward, eager for the sound. Once it returns, absence magnifies your importance, not because you change, but because the imagination of others enlarges you in their minds. And imagination, when it works upon a figure unseen, paints that figure in colors brighter than reality ever could. Understand that absence creates a hunger no presence can satisfy. When you are near, people may ignore you, dismiss you, or take you for granted. But when you are gone, they begin to feel the weight of your silence. They wonder where you are, why you have vanished, what secrets you may hold. Curiosity festers, longing takes root, and soon your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. This is the great paradox of human nature. Men chase most fiercely that which flees from them. Even in affairs of the heart, absence wields its power. Lovers who never leave one another's side soon grow restless, their passions fading into habit. But let one step away, let one withdraw into silence, and the heart of the other burns hotter than before. The space created by absence is filled not with emptiness, but with desire, and that desire consumes until it becomes obsession. The lover who withholds himself becomes not weaker, but stronger, for it is his absence that dominates the thoughts of the beloved. In the courts of power, princes and rulers have long understood this. A ruler who is too visible, who mingles too freely with the common crowd, soon loses his aura. The people see his flaws, they mock his habits, they treat him as an equal. But a ruler who is scarce in his presence, who appears seldom and with gravity, inspires awe. His every gesture is magnified, his words are repeated as prophecy, and his image grows into legend. It is not the abundance of his presence but the rarity of it that forges devotion and fear. Absence is the stage upon which myth is built. The less they see you, the more they imagine. And what men imagine, they often exalt beyond reality. Think of the general who withdraws from his men, appearing only at the moment of battle. In his absence, his soldiers speak of him, debate his strategies, dream of his return. And when he at last shows himself, his presence carries the weight of legend, and his authority burns into their souls like fire. Even merchants and craftsmen know the power of absence. A market flooded with goods sees prices fall, for abundance dulls desire. But when goods are withheld, when shelves are bare, men clamor, fight, and pay dearly for what they once overlooked. So it is with you. To be always present is to cheapen your worth. To be absent at will, to appear only when it serves your interest, is to raise your value in the minds of others. Absence is not retreat. It is strategy. It is the art of pulling back so that men are forced to follow, the science of withholding so that men crave. It is the unseen force that bends desire, respect, and obsession in your favor. Those who do not understand this seek to conquer with abundance, with constant giving, with endless presence, and they fail. Those who master absence rule without lifting a sword, for men enslave themselves to what they cannot freely possess. At the heart of all human desire lies a simple truth: men crave most what they cannot easily have. Their minds are restless machines, never content with what lies in their grasp, but ever tormented by what slips just beyond their reach. This is the psychology of obsession, the secret force that governs kingdoms, ignites passions, and destroys reason. If you wish to master power, you must learn how to ignite this fire in others, to become not the one who chases, but the one who is endlessly pursued. Consider how quickly men grow bored of what is constant. A treasure given freely becomes trinket, but the same treasure locked behind barriers becomes an object of madness. It is not the possession of a thing that enslaves the heart, it is the pursuit. When something is denied, or when it remains uncertain, the human mind cannot let it rest. It circles around it, day after day, until the longing becomes unbearable. This is why lovers dream of the absent, why soldiers die for banners, why men ruin themselves for riches they may never see. It is the uncertainty, the difficulty, the distance, that transforms mere interest into obsession. The heart of man is like a hunter. It is not the captured prey that excites him, but the chase, the struggle, the taste of triumph waiting at the end. Once the prey is caught, the thrill vanishes, and he looks again for what runs faster, hides deeper, resists longer. If you are too available, too eager, you become the prey already slain, and he turns away. But if you withhold, if you make yourself difficult to catch, then every thought, every effort, every ounce of energy becomes directed toward the hunt for you. This is why scarcity and absence kindle desire, and why difficulty transforms desire into obsession. In politics, this truth is everywhere. A ruler who reveals all, who gives his people no mystery, no secrecy, no veil, soon loses their awe. They may still obey, but their hearts will not burn for him. Yet the ruler who conceals, who allows whispers to spread, who gives glimpses but never full view, becomes the object of endless fascination. His people speculate, invent, magnify his image, and in their minds, he grows into a figure larger than life. They become obsessed not with who he is, but with who they imagine him to be, and imagination is always more powerful than reality. Think of the lover again. The one who is always near, always speaking, always chasing, quickly becomes tedious. But the one who withdraws, who speaks little, who gives only fragments, becomes a torment in the mind of the beloved. She replays his words, searching for meaning. She dreams of his absence, filling it with her own imagination. And in this way, he becomes larger than he is, not because of what he gives, but because of what he withholds. Her obsession grows, not from satisfaction, but from hunger. This hunger is the key to power. To satisfy men completely is to end their need for you. To leave them hungry, unsatisfied, uncertain, is to bind them to you without chains. For as long as they desire more, they will return, they will chase, they will obsess. This is the cruel but eternal law of the human mind. It is enslaved not by plenty, but by lack. Merchants use this when they create false scarcity, allowing men to line up in desperation for goods they could easily produce in abundance. The goods themselves may be simple, even worthless, but because they cannot be had at will, they become objects of obsession. Men fight for them, pay more than they are worth, simply because others cannot obtain them. In the same way, if you create barriers around yourself, if you make your presence difficult to secure, others will fight for your attention as if it were gold. The psychology of obsession thrives upon denial, distance, and uncertainty. When men do not know if they can have you, when they are unsure of your thoughts, when they cannot predict your movements, they begin to burn inside. Their minds run endlessly, replaying every gesture, every word, trying to uncover your secrets. You dominate them not by force, but by the shadow of what they cannot reach. And in their endless striving, you become central to their existence. This is why obsession is more powerful than mere desire. Desire fades once fulfilled, but obsession survives even in absence, even in failure, even in despair. Men obsessed cannot let go, for their minds are chained not by your presence, but by their own hunger for you. To master this psychology is to turn men into willing slaves, pursuing you even when you give them nothing, serving you even when you are nowhere to be seen. Power is not won by generosity alone, nor by scattering oneself freely before others. Power is seized and maintained through careful strategy, and among the sharpest strategies is the art of calculated absence, the deliberate crafting of scarcity. This is the true Machiavellian tactic, to control not by abundance but by rationing yourself, as if you were a treasure too rare to be spent freely. Men do not value what is cheap, they bow before what they cannot easily obtain. Consider how princes and rulers hold their courts. The weak ruler mingles too often with his subjects, thinking that familiarity will breed loyalty. Yet what it truly breeds is contempt. The people begin to see his flaws, his human frailties, and soon they treat him as one of themselves. He loses his aura of command. The strong ruler, however, makes his presence rare. He chooses carefully when to be seen and when to withdraw, appearing only in moments of great importance. By this restraint, he forces his subjects to await him, to speak of him, to long for his presence. Each appearance becomes an event, each word a decree, each gesture a symbol of power. It is not by abundance but by rarity that his authority multiplies. This same tactic applies not only to thrones, but to every human interaction. To give yourself fully, to be present without limit, is to throw away your value like coins scattered in the street. They may be picked up, but no one will treasure them. Yet if you withdraw, if you limit access to yourself, you create the illusion that you are beyond reach, that your presence is not ordinary, but extraordinary. Men and women alike will then compete for your attention, as if it were a prize. This is the foundation of control, to make others seek you while you remain still. Absence is not passivity, it is active rule over the minds of others. When you step away, when you hold back, you are not surrendering influence but shaping it. For in your absence, men begin to imagine, to speculate, to weave tales about you. They cannot ignore you because they cannot see you. They cannot dismiss you because your silence demands interpretation, and the interpretations they invent often exalt you higher than you could ever raise yourself. The Machiavellian knows this and uses it like a craftsman with his finest tool. Think of a general who stands among his soldiers daily, speaking endlessly, sharing every detail. His men listen at first, but soon they tire. His words lose their weight, his presence becomes routine, and their loyalty wanes. But the general who appears seldom, who lets his commanders speak in his name, who reveals himself only before battle, commands a different kind of devotion. His silence breeds mystery, his rare words ignite passion, and his scarce presence becomes the spark that turns ordinary men into zealots willing to die for him. The tactic is simple, yet its results are immense. In love, the same truth governs. The lover who pursues constantly, who reveals all, who makes himself abundant, loses power. His affection becomes cheap because it costs nothing to receive. The lover who withholds, who gives in fragments, who steps back when most expected, becomes irresistible. His scarcity is not rejection but domination, for it keeps the beloved in a state of hunger. She is never satisfied, and so she returns again and again, bound by the obsession that his absence has crafted. This is not cruelty but mastery of human nature, a nature that does not cherish what is given too freely, but worships what is rationed with care. Even merchants, those who understand men's desires better than philosophers, practice this tactic. They limit the flow of goods, not because they cannot provide more, but because they know men will pay dearly for what appears rare. Scarcity inflates value, and men are ruled by value more than by reason. If such a principle governs the marketplace, how much more power can it grant when applied to your own presence, your own time, your own self? To act in a Machiavellian manner is not to abandon morality, but to understand it as men practice it, not as they pretend it to be. Men say they value honesty, openness, abundance of kindness. But in truth, they chase mystery, they revere rarity, they desire what is withheld. The wise ruler, the cunning leader, the master of influence accepts this truth and uses it. He does not scatter himself among the crowd, but raises himself above it by making himself scarce. He withholds not to vanish, but to increase demand. He withdraws not to surrender, but to strengthen his hold. The tactic is cruel only to those who do not see its necessity. For the world is not ruled by those who give endlessly of themselves, but by those who ration their presence like kings rationing gold. He who controls his presence controls desire. He who controls desire controls men, and he who controls men rules not only their bodies but their very hearts. So, you see, the secret is not in giving more, but in giving less. Men are slaves to what they cannot easily have. And when you understand this, you no longer chase. You make others chase you. Scarcity breeds desire. Absence multiplies your power. Obsession consumes their hearts, and through calculated rarity, you hold them in your grip. This is the Machiavellian way, to command not by force alone, but by mastering the unseen chains of human desire.